1956. Warner Brothers Studios, the final day of filming Giant. Elizabeth Taylor sat alone in her dressing room, holding a small piece of folded paper in her trembling hands. Tears streamed down her face silently, falling onto the note that Rock Hudson had hidden in her costume. She'd read it once, then twice, and now a third time. Each reading revealed something new: Rock's thoughtfulness, his gentleness, his love. "You're as wonderful a person as you are an actress," he'd written. Elizabeth read that sentence again and again because nobody in her life had ever said such a thing. Everyone praised her beauty, her talent. But Rock saw her heart. Meanwhile, hours earlier that same day, Rock Hudson had been sitting in his own dressing room, a pen in his hand and a blank piece of paper before him. He'd made a strange decision. He was going to write a note to Elizabeth Taylor, but he wouldn't give it to her face to face. He was too shy. The words wouldn't come out right if he tried to speak them. Instead, he would hide the note in Elizabeth's costume so she'd find it alone, in silence, when she was ready to receive it. Rock's hand shook slightly as he began to write. What should he say? How could he explain what these 6 months with Elizabeth had meant to him? They'd worked together every day on Giant, and Elizabeth had become special in Rock's life in a way few people ever had. Because Elizabeth accepted Rock exactly as he was, without judgment, without conditions. In Hollywood, everyone wore masks, but with Elizabeth, Rock could be himself, and that gift, that rare and precious gift, deserved acknowledgement. This is the story of a hidden note, a secret friendship, and the moment when Elizabeth Taylor discovered that someone truly saw her. Not the movie star, not the famous beauty, but the woman beneath it all. And it's the story of how Rock Hudson, in his quiet, thoughtful way, gave Elizabeth something more valuable than any award or recognition: the knowledge that she was loved for who she truly was. Before we continue with this touching story, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We share the hidden moments from Hollywood's golden age, the stories of kindness and connection that remind us what really matters. To understand why Rock's note affected Elizabeth so profoundly, we need to step back and see what her life looked like in 1956. At 24 years old, Elizabeth Taylor was one of the most famous people on Earth. Yet her face appeared on magazine covers worldwide. Her name generated headlines daily. She was recognized everywhere she went, photographed constantly, scrutinized endlessly. But fame had become a burden she carried alone. Elizabeth's personal life in 1956 was turbulent. Her second marriage, to British actor Michael Wilding, was falling apart. The press coverage was relentless and harsh, painting Elizabeth as impulsive, unstable, someone who couldn't maintain relationships. Every argument became tabloid fodder. Every difficulty became public entertainment. Elizabeth felt like she was living in a fishbowl where everyone watched but nobody truly saw her. The filming of Giant had been physically and emotionally demanding. 6 months on location in Texas, working in scorching heat, to playing a character who aged from teenager to grandmother across the film's epic timeline. Director George Stevens was a perfectionist who demanded dozens of takes, pushing his actors to their limits. Elizabeth gave everything to the role of Leslie Benedict, pouring her own struggles with identity and expectation into the character. By September, she was exhausted, emotionally raw, and wondering if anyone saw past the Elizabeth Taylor image to the real person underneath. That's when Rock Hudson became more than just a co-star. He became a friend, a confidant, someone Elizabeth could trust in an industry where trust was rare. Rock never judged her, never leaked stories to the press, never used their friendship for personal gain. He simply showed up, day after day, with kindness and understanding. For Elizabeth, who'd been surrounded by people wanting something from her since childhood, Rock's genuine friendship was like water in a desert. The information in this video is compiled from documented interviews, archival news, books, and historical reports. For narrative purposes, some parts are dramatized and may not represent 100% factual accuracy. We also use AI-assisted visuals and AI narration for cinematic reconstruction. The use of AI does not mean the story is fake, it is a storytelling tool. Our goal is to recreate the spirit of that era as faithfully as possible. Enjoy watching. Rock Hudson in 1956 was living a double life. To the public, he was Hollywood's perfect leading man, handsome, charming, the ideal romantic hero. But privately, Rock carried a secret that, if revealed, would destroy his career. In an era when being openly gay meant professional ruin and social ostracism, Rock had to hide his true self constantly. The pressure was enormous, the isolation profound. What made Elizabeth special to Rock was that she knew his secret and didn't care. She'd figured it out early in the filming, not through any dramatic revelation, but through the small observations that come from spending time together. And her response had been simple acceptance. She never treated Rock differently, never used his secret as leverage, never even brought it up unless he wanted to talk about it. To Rock, this unconditional acceptance was the greatest gift anyone had ever given him. That's why, on the final day of filming Giant, Rock felt compelled to thank Elizabeth in a way that went beyond casual gratitude. See, he needed to tell her that she'd made these 6 months bearable, that her friendship had meant everything, that her kindness had reminded him there were good people in an often cruel industry. But Rock struggled with expressing emotion directly. Years of hiding his true feelings had made verbal vulnerability difficult. Writing the note solved that problem. On paper, Rock could be honest in ways he couldn't manage face-to-face. He could take his time, choose his words carefully, express the depth of what he felt without the awkwardness of spoken conversation. And hiding the note in Elizabeth's costume added a layer of privacy that felt safe to Rock. Elizabeth would find it alone, read it privately, and they could discuss it later if she wanted, but without the pressure of immediate reaction. Have you ever struggled to express gratitude to someone who changed your life? Tell us in the comments how you finally found the words. Rock sat at his dressing room table with the blank paper in front of him for nearly 20 minutes before he began writing. What he wanted to say was simple, but also profound. Elizabeth, you've been extraordinary. Not just as an actress, though your talent amazes me daily, but as a human being. Your kindness to the crew, your generosity with your time, the way you treat everyone with respect regardless of their position. You've shown me what grace really means, but Rock worried those words weren't enough. How could he convey the full impact Elizabeth had made? How could he explain that her friendship had given him hope, had reminded him that authenticity was possible even in Hollywood's fakery? Yeah, that genuine connection could exist even in an industry built on illusion? Rock started writing several times, crumpled the paper, started again. Finally, he let the words flow naturally, writing from his heart without overthinking. He thanked Elizabeth for her talent, yes, but more importantly, for her heart. He told her that working with her had been an honor, that her kindness had touched him deeply, that he would remember these months forever. He kept the note relatively brief, knowing that sometimes less is more, that sincerity doesn't require lengthy explanation. When he finished, Rock read it through once, nodded with satisfaction, and carefully folded the small piece of paper. The next challenge was hiding it where Elizabeth would find it, but nobody else would see it first. Rock knew Elizabeth's costume routine. She was meticulous about her wardrobe, always checking pockets and seams before returning costumes to the department. The inside pocket of her jacket seemed perfect, hidden enough that casual handling wouldn't reveal it, but obvious enough that Elizabeth's careful attention would discover it. Rock waited until the costume trailer was empty, slipped inside, and tucked the folded note into the jacket pocket. Then he left quickly, his heart pounding with a mixture of nervousness and satisfaction. Hours later, after the final shot was completed and George Stevens had called wrap on Giant, Elizabeth returned to her dressing room with mixed emotions. She was relieved the grueling production was over, proud of the work they'd done, but also sad to leave this world and these people. She'd grown close to several cast and crew members, but especially to Rock. Their friendship had sustained her through the difficult months, and she wondered how often they'd see each other once filming ended. Elizabeth began removing her costume with the same careful attention she always gave this ritual. The costume department worked hard to maintain these period pieces, and Elizabeth respected their effort by treating everything gently. She unbuttoned the jacket, started to remove it, and felt something in the inside pocket. Strange, the costume department usually checked pockets thoroughly. Elizabeth reached in and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. The moment she saw Rock's handwriting, Elizabeth's breath caught. She sat down slowly, still holding the note, her heart racing with anticipation and curiosity. What had Rock written? When had he hidden this? Elizabeth carefully unfolded the paper and began to read. The first sentence alone, thanking her for making the past 6 months an honor, made her eyes well up. But as she continued reading, as Rock's words revealed not just professional appreciation, but genuine personal affection, Elizabeth felt something break open inside her. Rock had seen her. Not Elizabeth Taylor, the movie star, not the beautiful face that sold magazines, not the troubled woman the tabloids loved to criticize. He'd seen Elizabeth the person, her kindness, her heart, her essential humanity. In a world where everyone wanted something from her, Rock was giving something to her, validation, that who she was, stripped of fame and beauty and talent, was enough, was valuable, was loved. Elizabeth read the note a second time, tears falling freely now. On each sentence meant more on the second reading. Rock's careful choice of words, his acknowledgement of both her talent and her character, his simple declaration that he valued their friendship, it all combined into the most meaningful gift Elizabeth had received in years. Not jewelry, not flowers, not the expensive presents that famous admirers sent hoping to impress her. Just honest words on paper, telling her that someone truly saw and appreciated who she was. What's the most meaningful note or letter you've ever received? Share your story in the comments below. Elizabeth stood up, still clutching the note, and wiped her eyes. She needed to find Rock immediately. This couldn't wait. She needed him to know that his words had reached her, had touched her, had meant everything. Elizabeth left her dressing room and hurried down the studio corridor, still in parts of her costume, makeup smeared from crying, completely unconcerned about her appearance in her urgency to reach Rock. She found him in his dressing room, already changed into his regular clothes, packing up the personal items he'd kept there during the long production. When Elizabeth knocked and entered without waiting for an answer, Rock looked up with surprise that quickly shifted to concern when he saw her tear-stained face. "Elizabeth, what's wrong?" he started to ask, but Elizabeth held up the note. "I found it," she said simply, her voice thick with emotion. Rock's expression transformed, going soft with understanding and a touch of embarrassment. "I meant every word," he said quietly. Elizabeth crossed the room quickly and wrapped Rock in a tight embrace. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing me. The real me." Rock hugged her back, and they stood there for a long moment, two people who'd found genuine friendship in an industry where such connections were rare and precious. When they finally separated, Elizabeth looked at Rock with eyes that were clearer despite the tears. "You're an incredible friend, Rock. I hope you know that. And this," she held up the note again, "this is the most beautiful thing anyone's given me in years. I'm going to keep it forever." Rock smiled, that gentle smile Elizabeth had come to know so well over the past 6 months. "You deserve to be appreciated, Elizabeth, not for what you do or how you look, but for who you are." They talked for another hour. Lies sitting in Rock's dressing room, reflecting on the filming of Giant, sharing hopes and fears about the future, cementing a friendship that both of them sensed would last long beyond this production. When Elizabeth finally left to finish packing her own things, she carefully tucked Rock's note into her purse, already knowing it would become one of her most treasured possessions. That hidden note marked the beginning of one of Hollywood's most enduring and genuine friendships. Over the nearly 3 decades that followed, Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson remained close. They supported each other through career triumphs and personal struggles, through marriages and divorces, through the highs and lows that came with fame. Their friendship wasn't based on publicity or professional advantage. It was rooted in mutual respect, genuine affection, one in the memory of 6 months in 1956 when they'd recognized kindred spirits in each other. In 1985, when Rock Hudson was diagnosed with a serious illness, Elizabeth was among the first people he told. And when Rock's health declined rapidly, Elizabeth visited him frequently, holding his hand, reminiscing about their time on Giant, reminding him that he'd touched her life profoundly. Rock, even in his weakened state, remembered that final day of filming, the note he'd hidden, Elizabeth's tearful gratitude when she found it. "That was the day our real friendship began," he told her during one visit. Rock Hudson passed away in October 1985 at age 59. Elizabeth Taylor was devastated by the loss of her dear friend. At his memorial service, she spoke about Rock's kindness, his talent, and his courage, and she mentioned, though without going into detail, that Rock had once written her a note that she'd kept and cherished for nearly 30 years. "Rock saw people, Elizabeth said, really saw them, and he had the courage to tell them what they meant to him. That's a rare gift. After Rock's passing, Elizabeth became a fierce advocate for causes Rock had cared about, raising millions and using her fame to bring attention to important issues. She often said that Rock had taught her about the power of genuine friendship, about the importance of accepting people for who they truly were. The note Rock had hidden in her costume in 1956 became, in retrospect, a symbol of the friendship that had sustained both of them through decades of challenge and change. If this story has touched you, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these beautiful stories of human connection and genuine friendship. The story of Rock's hidden note reminds us of something important. Sometimes the smallest gestures carry the most meaning. Rock didn't give Elizabeth an expensive gift or make a grand public declaration. He simply wrote honest words on paper and left them where she'd find them privately. But those words, sincere and heartfelt, became one of Elizabeth's most treasured possessions because they told her something she desperately needed to hear. You are seen, you are valued, you are loved for who you truly are. Elizabeth Taylor kept Rock's note for the rest of her life. It was found among her personal effects after her death in 2011, carefully preserved. Obviously read many times over the decades. The note itself was never made public. Its exact words remain private, known only to Elizabeth, Rock, and perhaps a few close family members. But the existence of the note and Elizabeth's cherishing of it for over 50 years tells us everything we need to know about its importance. In a world that often celebrates the superficial, Rock and Elizabeth's friendship celebrated the authentic. In an industry that traded in image and illusion, they found genuine connection. And it all started with a hidden note, a quiet gesture of appreciation, and two people brave enough to be honest about what they meant to each other. Rock Hudson's note didn't just make Elizabeth Taylor cry on that September day in 1956. It gave her something she'd been searching for her entire life, proof that someone saw past the fame and beauty to the person underneath and loved what they found there. Years later, Elizabeth would tell interviewers that one of her greatest treasures wasn't an award or a jewel, but a handwritten note from a dear friend who'd seen her heart. She never revealed what Rock had written, keeping those words between them as a final gift to his privacy. But she would say, with tears in her eyes, "Rock taught me that the best things we can give each other aren't things at all. They're words of appreciation, gestures of kindness, and the gift of being truly seen." That's the legacy of Rock Hudson's hidden note. Not just a piece of paper tucked into a costume, but a reminder that authentic connection, genuine friendship, and honest appreciation have the power to change lives. Elizabeth Taylor, one of the most famous and beautiful women in the world, was transformed by a simple note telling her that her kindness mattered. Her heart was beautiful, and she was loved for exactly who she was. The camera stopped rolling on Giant in September 1956, but the friendship born during its filming lasted 3 decades. Rock Hudson's thoughtfulness in hiding that note, and Elizabeth Taylor's tears when she found it, were just the beginning of a story about two people who found in each other something rare and precious. A friend who truly understood, who genuinely cared, and who had the courage to say so. What gestures of appreciation have meant the most in your life? Share your stories in the comments, and let's celebrate the power of genuine human connection.